They said that they shot 41 times at Amadou because he looked suspicious. Well, if he looks like me, that means I look suspicious. And that means you look suspicious. And that means that you feel you got the right to shoot me. I got the right. He's my brother. He's my brother.
Bless us together and lead us to justice for this child.
Yes.
May he rest in peace, and I thank everybody. Thank you very much.
The journey I took to go back home with the body of Amadou was a very painful journey for me.
When you feel that you are sitting in the aircraft and your son is like just a body in a casket, it's not a good feeling. It's very traumatic and painful. Upon arrival at the airport, everybody came there to receive us. I felt comfort in that.
We came to Guinea for Amadou's funeral. I've been trying to remember exactly when we met Jesse, and I keep drawing in the blank because it seemed like he wasn't there one second, the next second he was with us. We were looking for Amadou's Guinea.
17 years forward.
Welcome to the Gilchrist experience. As you all know, this is 1999, last century, at National Action Network, and I just recently saw Loudmouth, which shows you the Howard Beach, the first one involving Reverend Sharpton and his fight for justice. And this is more or less the third or fourth instance where I joined National Action Network in '97. So this was my first exposure to the families of the victims coming forward. And Mrs. Diallo was a Somalian, and I identified it with her as a family, because she looked like my family. Because my past has been associated with Ethiopia and Somalians. They often tell me I look that way.
She's Guinean.
Huh?
She's from Guinea.
I know, but I'm saying she looks Somalian. She's from Guinea, but you know, she has a Somalian, Ethiopian look. So I identify her. I saw her as family. So this is my first exposure to the victims' side of it. And we got to know Mrs. Diallo quite well. You joined her board. And these are the mothers of the victims that we're going to talk about today. And I recommend everybody see Loudmouth. My junior statesman, Minister McHenry, saw Loudmouth, so I thought I'd present the other items that are not in Loudmouth. I don't think we pay too much attention to Amadou.
Not in Loudmouth, no.
No, not in Loudmouth. So I thought I'd present to you my exposure to National Action Network and its great work. What do you think of Loudmouth, Minister?
I was invited to Loudmouth by the organization at the Tribeca Film Festival. So it was a great honor, first time going there. The movie brought me to tears in many ways. It reminded me that of all the cases that I was not privy to. I live in Far Rockaway, so I have to journey through Howard Beach every time I'm going to Nan or every time I'm coming here. And I did not realize that one of the first cases that were so famous is at a pizzeria that I go to right now, right currently.
Right.
And so just watching the clips of where that first case took place, I'm very familiar with it. And of course, that happened so many years ago and it's changed, but that's all because of a Loudmouth.
Okay.
And so we understand that if right through the testimony of Reverend Sharpton, maybe we haven't seen Moses in action, maybe we haven't seen Harriet Tubman or Frederick Douglass, maybe I wasn't around for Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, but to see the way God has used the life of the Dr. Reverend Al Sharpton during this time is a huge inspiration, right? So we can talk about that Howard Beach case, but all the way to George Floyd in recent cases. There needs to be someone who stands up. And sometimes when you're facing a government that is such a giant, you need a rock. And a lot of times that rock is found in God's word. And so you just have to speak truth to power. Right. And the truth is, you know, we didn't come here just recently. We've been here since 1619. And you still have not recognized us as what we are, citizens of this country. You still treat us as 3/5 of a person.
We built this country.
And we built this country, but yet you still don't want to give us the rights to this country. And not only is it hurting our community, it's hurting your own. And so the movie Loudmouth is just a way of which you see God use a man to put pressure on a system, but you understand that in order to do that, you need to create a system to fight a system. And you see him do that in his early career.
All right, before I let you speak, Graham, I just want to go back to 1A, and we'll listen to a sermon at National Action Network on Diallo. This sister, I mean, Mother Teresa of the Black community. Mother Teresa. But she's a spirit that we all need to listen to. Play item 1.
As I have spent time with reading Warrior Spirit, that's who she is. And with the warrior, brave father, that's who he is. And having the vision of a son through consciousness, Rebel Sharpton. He's not only a visionary, he's not only marking time through a legacy that carries, but also he's a warrior brother for peace. I want to say to you, no justice, no peace. It's a human rights cry. It is not just a cry to just be crying, a human rights cry. And what I would like to leave the family through the spirit of Queen Moore. The legacy is left to me. The bloodline to Sister Winnie Della, which I met with Winnie about a month ago in the airport, and we sat there and talked for 2.5 hours. She was waiting to board a plane. And the very subject that we're talking about here in this room is what the sister discussed with me. So the womb of our women is rising up. And as Queen Mother has left her line to Sister Rita Marley, and the spirit of the Honorable Masai Magadi, Queen Mother was a Garveyite. Queen Mother was about the family, the man and woman, and that was her spirit for us in terms of sisterhood. And as we take this journey tomorrow, it is not a sad journey. Right. It is a divine journey. Well. And with this divine journey from our warrior child, our crown prince, I call him our crown prince. A crown prince who understood that there was a higher being than just the natural forces of life. As Mama and I was sitting on his bed, and we decided to check out one thing in the room, because I'm a curious sister and a curious Queen Mother. And I went inside of his luggage as I looked around in the room. And what I find inside, I shared with Mama and Baba. Where are you, Baba? I shared with the both of them look what we have here. And inside revealed what he was doing in his own consciousness in the wee hours in the secret corner of his room. And in that suitcase, there we discovered books. Books, what type of books? And inside of that suitcase, science and technology, mathematics, computer science. And then as we continue to pull and tug at his little bag, the three of us discovered something else. His spiritual life was in the bag. He carried it full time. And then a rug, his prayerful rug, which is a worn out rug, which you would have to use it. The same as he used his books. They used the human touch, the human smell was on the rug. And Mommy grabbed it. She said, for 3 years, I haven't held my son, but I want to smell him. And she stood there and she held the rug, and she smelled a prayerful rug of her son. She said, sweet mother, I want to hold him. I want to smell him. He's not been in my care for 3 years. I said to Mama and to Papa, let him go. Let him go. You are blessed parents. He come from your womb, a blessed child. Because God came first in his life. Allah came first in his life. And Mother opened up. She opened up the book about prophecy and divine spirituality. And little notes he wrote and left to us. And the notes talked about Abraham. And Abraham being a warrior for peace. So he's a crowned peace brother, a crowned peace child, a crowned peace son. And as we move to the middle passage, all of us who are ancestors.
Now, if you were in the room there, that's church. I mean, and the way this young man was killed, it's pathetic. And the reasons, we've got Graham here, who was a detective on the case, and he can explain some of the reasons why this happened. Give us your rendition, your observation.
I got a call early that morning from a brother Sadiqwa, who I had met at a business conference at SUNY downstate, maybe a week before Amadou's death. He called me, says, Brother Graham, we need you. One of our people has been killed by a police officer. I got up out of my bed, I went to the Bronx. And people were already assembled. Reverend Sharpton and I made eye contact, and I made my way through the crowd up the steps. Reverend Sharpton, myself, the nephew of Kwame Nkrumah, the first 20th century president of the state of Ghana, was there. We were, and Amadou's cousin, who lived with him. We were in the apartment, and we poured libation, and we sat and had something to eat out of a common pot. The police took the cousin to the precinct to inquire of him if he knew of anybody that would have wanted to kill Amadou.
His cousin was his roommate.
Right. So the police were already crafting a scheme to pin this on somebody else.
Cover.
If he had said, well, he and Winston had a fight last week, they'd have been knocking at your door to drag you out and try and charge you. His cousin didn't realize what was going on until he got back to the house. So the cover-up had already started.
Did he know Amadou had been killed?
He knew he had been killed, but he didn't know that he had been shot by the police.
Ah, okay.
Amadou went outside and stood on the stoop. There were 3 cars in the street, and the occupants of those 3 cars were having a conversation of some type. We don't know. But somebody eyeballed Amadou standing on the stairs at the stoop. They all turned and looked at Amadou. The occupants of 2 of the cars got in their cars and drove off. Now, one car was a black Mercedes, and the other one was a red Camaro. The black Mercedes had diplomatic plates.
Mm-hmm.
They drove off. The 4 officers walked up to Amadou and gunned him down. Sean Carroll ascended the stairs on the stoop and shot him
Point blank.
just about point blank. The other 2 officers fired from the sidewalk. Unbeknownst to them, there was a 4th car. The 4th car was driving by as they were shooting Amadou. The occupants of the 4th car were federal agents.
You never told me that.
The federal agents are not going to get involved in a local matter because they had to maintain what we call the eye. They were surveilling that black Mercedes with the diplomatic plates. So as that car moved, they came down the street to continue their surveillance of him. Now, this information I got from 2 independent sources that I've talked with. One was a witness who was across the street when the shooting took place, and that witness was hiding in fear of her own life behind a parked car. The other one was a gentleman that I happened to meet during the process of my digging and scratching. So the officers now are talking about, oh, he fit the description of a suspect for rape. You know, nonsense.
Yeah. That was the story.
Now,
Who lived in the next block over?
I don't even know if they ever found the guy that they were looking for. I have no knowledge of an arrest ever for that rape. But Amadou had bullet holes in the soles of his feet. Sean Carroll testified that he fired at Amadou, and the bullets had no effect on him. So you need to understand the racial tone in that statement.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to Rodney King. They said those were glancing blows and they had no effect on Rodney King. And he was dangerous because he wouldn't stay down. But here's a fellow that weighed about 135, 140
Yeah,
pounds.
right, lightweight.
And he is saying that a 9mm automatic muzzle velocity is 1,380 feet per second.
Oh, yeah.
All right? My finger is not moving 1,380 feet per second, and he is much larger than Amadou ever was. But he's moving.
How many bullets were fired?
43.
43. You
They
found
reported
2
41, but it was 43. I found 42 and 43 at the crime scene about 10 days after the shooting.
Okay.
One was in the front right lower door jamb. The other one was in his kitchen. It went down the hall, over the door, and was lodged in the wall of the kitchen. So it was 43 rounds that were fired. All right?
Yeah.
They did make a little reference to it in the trial, and they asked the detective from crime scene, did you recover any ballistic evidence? Oh, yeah, we recovered some on such and such a date. But they're not going to get into the fact that there were 43 rounds. In the process, I have a very close friend. We sang in the same a cappella group back in the 60s. We were raised at the same church. Our families have known each other for many years. And he was a U.S. attorney at the time. And you'll remember the U.S. Attorney's Office came in to do an investigation. And he said to me, he said, Graham, they don't want to, the DA doesn't want to prosecute this case. Robert Johnson assigned the case. He was the DA. The people he assigned it to said they didn't want to do it, give it to somebody else. So this was sloughed off, and passed down the line until it got to wherever it was.
Why?
I don't know why. I don't know why a district attorney would not exercise, first of all,
Do it himself.
No. You're the DA, you give the orders. You don't have people tell you what they want or don't want to do. Your job as the district attorney is to advocate for the victim. And if
Right.
your staff does not want to advocate for the victim, you need to get rid of them. You don't allow them to stay in the office working under you, and you're going along with that crap. Now,
Well, what do you think happened, though? What is your...
what happened? They just covered up for the cops. That's all.
Well,
Amadou
what about
never
these
reached. He never
what about these-
crouched. He never reached. He never did any of
Do
it.
you have any theory about what the federal people were doing there?
I have no idea. And they're not going to tell us what they were doing there. But they were surveilling that vehicle. Now, they're not surveilling them unless they're into something crooked.
So
and corrupt.
Amadou was at the wrong place at the wrong
He was
time.
at the wrong place, the wrong time. He saw something he shouldn't have seen, and that was it. And the feds were not getting involved. My friend from the U.S. Attorney's Office said straight out they don't want to prosecute. Then they went and got the administrative law judge of New York to grant a change of venue from the
Yeah.
Bronx
Yeah.
to Albany.
Yeah.
Now let me see. This is it was Judge Judy's husband that did this. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But it was Judge Judy's husband that facilitated the change of venue from the Bronx to Albany. In a change of venue, you must go to a county which is analogous to the demographics of the county in which the incident occurred. Albany County is predominantly white.
Yeah.
It had no business going there. And the PBA took care of him. He retired and moved to Florida.
Well, that was one case where I really had the faith that something would happen. I actually went to Albany every chance we would bust up there, and it was a
Another thing,
disappointing case.
myself and David
Through all
Reeves
the
of,
actions and actions that we took, you know, all that marching and protesting at City Hall. I mean, this was one of the biggest things I've ever been
I didn't
participating
tell you
in.
the backstory. You spoke about the pizza parlor on Cross Bay Boulevard. And I almost killed a dude a couple of blocks from there years ago when I was in my car with my children. But Charles Hines was elected district attorney of Kings County following the Michael Griffith case. Michael Griffith was the guy that got killed at the Belt Parkway there. Charles Hines became the DA and sent so many black men to prison for crimes that they didn't commit, along with a crooked detective, Scarcella. There are 120 some odd cases they're investigating now that Scarcella and Hines were linked in, sending black men to prison. When Charles Hines was defeated and replaced by Ken Thompson, the first African-American DA in Kings County. And Ken was a friend of mine, old friend and a fellow congregant from my church. We sat and talked about some of these cases that had to be reopened. One thing he said, Graham, records have been destroyed. Hines destroyed records. There were people on his staff that were embedded with him and were still working in the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office that needed to be gotten rid of. All right? There was a young fellow who was shot to death, 13 years old, playing with his friends, playing cowboys and Indians in a housing project on Bond Street. And he was shot. The bullet went right through him. He was shot by a detective that came up with some, not a detective, a housing cop, came up with some crazy story. Oh, he thought it was real. You know a toy gun when you know a toy rifle when you see a toy rifle. He shot and killed this boy. But Ken Thompson was stricken with cancer, colon cancer. He died a number of years ago. And I'm going to show you how this all ties in, because 15 months before Amadou was murdered, A young fellow in East New York named Patrick Bailey
Yeah, yeah.
was shot to death
by the
by
same
Kenneth
cop.
Boss. And
Okay.
Kenneth Boss was one of the police officers that murdered Amadou.
And
He
I
shot,
forgot about that.
Kenneth Boss shot Patrick Bailey in the back.
Oh, God.
Following, and this is a lot, this is something that happens and it's cost the lives of a lot of people, even other police officers.
Now, district
Drug
attorneys.
dealers will report a crime stating they've been victim of a robbery. These drug dealers were in front of the house on Sheffield Avenue that Patrick Bailey's parents owned. They didn't live there, but they owned it. And he had a little recording studio and he would do, make tapes and things. So they were hassling the people that lived in the building. He came out with a shotgun. It didn't work, it was old, but it was enough to scare these guys and tell them, leave these people alone, get out of here. You don't live here, leave the people alone. And Patrick was about 16 years old. They left.
16?
Yeah. Yeah, he was a teenager.
Huh.
So
With a shotgun.
about an hour later, he goes to the supermarket. He's coming, the supermarket was across the street from my church. He's walking back to the house, and one of his friends look back and they see the drug dealers are coming. And they're running with some white guys. Now they're really afraid because they figure these white guys are tied in with these drug dealers, and they run. They make it into the block. Patrick and a young lady go into the building. His other two friends ran across the street to another building. Kenneth Boss and a sergeant come in the building, shots are fired. One bullet is in the staircase, one bullet is in the girl's buttocks. Another bullet hit Patrick in the back. It struck his pelvic bone, moved diagonally through his body, went through his penis, and was lodged in his inner left thigh. Casilda Ropers Simpson, civil rights attorney, called me. She said, Graham, I need your help. And I went through the paperwork. Even the special report done by the duty captain was a lie. They said it was a Mexican standoff. How do you get shot in the back in a Mexican standoff? Let me wrap this up. Charles Hines never called for a grand jury to review the shooting. 15 months passed. Amadou Diallo was shot.
Yeah.
The first shooting is still pending out there, but this cop has been moved from the 75th precinct in Brooklyn to the street crime unit where we rule the night. That was their motto.
Yeah.
All right? So, I'm in City Hall with Rudolph Giuliani, Howard Safer, and First Deputy Commissioner Kelleher. Giuliani says to me, Weatherspoon, what's this about? I said, it's about your police commissioner and why he would allow a cop to be transferred from the 7-5 into the street crime unit when he has a pending homicide investigation. And he said, well, he had a shotgun. I said, he had the shotgun an hour before. And on top of that, after the officer shot him, he let him bleed out. And I said, the only way that bullet could have wound up in his inner left thigh is that his leg was elevated, and it was. Coming through the penis, it struck the inner left thigh. If his leg was down, it would have missed the leg. Plus, there was blood splatter on the back wall in the hallway. So he wasn't facing the cop. The bullet ripped through the femoral artery, and blood sprayed out onto the wall. The cop is back here. So when Giuliani heard that, his jaw hit the floor. I said, yeah, and Charles Hines did not bring anything to the grand jury.
And all
So
this
now
and
you
what
have a
happened?
cop that's killed 2 black people in 15 months, and the DA in Brooklyn is culpable for the death of both individuals.
Another injustice. Well,
I'll finish with this. I said,
you're making up.
I said to Giuliani, I said, well, I said, Your Honor, you have a solution to this.
That's
said-
a half an hour, Graham.
He said, what is it? I said, you can whitewash it. And Giuliani said, let the people demonstrate. It's a form of venting. Let them demonstrate, and we'll be back to business as usual in a week. That was his response.
That was Giuliani. And thank God.
Ain't nothing changed. He was the devil incarnate then,
Yeah.
and he's just worse now.
Yeah. So let me run item 3. Loudmouth. Graham's made up for last week.
I'm allowed.
Yeah, Mike, Chris did a walkthrough with the police.
So is the concern a shooter?
We get threats all the time. I'm not gonna not do the rally.
Why don't you give me your name? Reverend Alfred Sharpton, chairman of National Youth Movement. We just buried a boy, and the only thing he did wrong was he was born on the wrong side of the tracks.
In New York City in the 80s, what we wanted to say, people did not want to hear. So you had to be loud because you were not invited to address the public.
So they can't ride us fair. They don't need to ride.
This is the beginning of a civil rights movement in New York.
It's all the media's fault. These things should be kept quiet. Al Sharpton, go home.
They will say that we are exasperating racial tensions, but the people know the truth.
George Floyd's story has been the story of black folks. We talk about calling for a big march. We won't put 200,000-300,000 people in Washington.
If the question comes from the media about looting, he wanted to pass to you to set the tone.
Couldn't breathe.
I understand the anger. I've been fighting these issues for decades.
Anytime you start shaking the root of this system, then you're going to have a discredit campaign.
No justice! Senator Schumer, we have not had the legislative response to the litany of cases of policing all the way from Rodney King to now. 2020, we must deal with police brutality.
We got to turn these stations upside down.
All of our lives you had to fight to make sure that you control the story.
I want the folks at CBS to know if you can't tell the story right, don't tell it at all.
You gotta be able to raise the theater level to where you don't lose control, but it is dramatic enough that you can't be ignored either.
Fascinating movie. Everyone should see it. Graham didn't get a chance to see it, and he gave us his rendition of working with Reverend Sharpton. What did you think about the movie?
I think it's a story about how it is important to understand your role in the fight. It is important to understand that this fight didn't start with you,
Right.
and you need to be in line excuse me, with the fight that's happened before you. It is important to understand that you have to understand your role. Are you a thermostat or are you a thermometer?
Right.
Are you called to just measure and spectate what's happening in society, or are you called to change the temperature?
Right.
And so what we learn is that unfortunately throughout, we can talk about multiple different cases, it doesn't matter if you are perpetrating a crime in blue jeans or in a blue uniform. We want justice no matter what it is. It is not okay for the policing to continue to do what it is doing through this country, using white supremacy as a tool through the badge to hide itself.
Right.
And so we can, for decades, have asked this country just to do what it said in its creed and to do what it says in the good book,
Right.
to love us. Right? We love our country, but our country seems to, instead of giving us the American dream and American nightmare, we love our country. Why can't you love us? So in the movie Loudmouth, you see Reverend Sharpton is saying, maybe you can't love me, and maybe I can't force you to love me, but I can prosecute you for hate. I can prosecute you for what you're doing to me. And we're seeing how the Rev has taken up this battle of saying, I need you to do what's right, because for too long you have, I am Amadou Diallo. I am all of these people. These people are no different than me. Why are you treating us this way?
Right.
And you're saying, well, they're resisting arrest. And you come up with all of these excuses to cover up a system that has continued to treat us like 3/5 of a person. And so what we're calling for is for justice to look and for justice to reign in every community. That policing look like what it looks like in white communities, that needs to look the same way in black and brown communities. Do not police us different. We understand that police come from the tradition of slave catchers and dog runners. We're asking for you to change with the times. So as I watch the movie Loudmouth, I'm just reminded that what is more important than anything is the truth. And that what the devil does is he uses his tool of the lie. And it is important to be grounded in the truth of God himself. They will try to trick you to believe that their lie is the story.
That's it.
And what we're seeing is that through the testimony of the Dr. Reverend Al Sharpton, that even though they perpetuate lies on you, if you just hold strong and don't give in, God will hold you up amongst these enemies, no matter how great and big they are. And so it is a blessing to see that God is real. God continues to fight for us. He fought with us during the times of slavery. And we said, Lord, how long? And he sent us a deliverer then. And then we fought through Jim Crow, and God sent us a deliverer now. And now this hero comes along. And that hero is always God himself. He just wears different masks and different faces. Today, he's wearing your face, he's wearing your face, and he's wearing my face. And we have to continue the work of our ancestors. And the work is to continue to talk truth to power. Though that you may try to trick me with your lies, though you may try to hold the media to tell your lie, I'm going to hold the truth that God gave me, that he created me equal to you, that he did not make me the servant, that my skin color does not make me the servant, but that God has called me to be blessed and highly favored. Well, how do I know this? Because no matter how low you put us, no matter how low you tried to keep us, we always found a way to rise up.
Rise up.
And so what we understand is that when you are called to follow Christ, no matter even if they put you in the grave itself, God will give you the plan on how to rise on the third day. Though you're planning an insurrection, God has already given us the plan for the resurrection. Get ready for the resurrection. Get ready for the resurrection. Because when we talk about no justice, no peace, we're talking about a justice and a peace that only God can give.
Oh, wow.
And when you lean on his word, what comes is peace and justice. Though you may do me wrong, I got the love that's going to break the chains of the enemy. Not only that you try to put around me, but that you're putting around my community. When you learn to be in tune with God, no matter what hell you in, you become a hell master. You become one who is not in trouble, but one who contains trouble. When you put yourself upon the one who has never lost a battle throughout the ages, you become a champion the way he is through time and time again.
Amen.
Whoa. Well, that's why you're here. And you asked me what the topic would be.
Well, you know, I'm always going to bring
see
it
what
back
happened?
to...
You play it by ear.
I just, you know...
And you see, this is what's so inspiring about doing this show. You know, I always say the God in me loves the God in you, and I sincerely believe that, and I play by that. And I'm guided every week here. You've seen me for 25 years now do these different live shows, but here we're taping. And still, you know, God presents these items to me. So we're still continuing what we do, what we're called to do. And I was called to be at Reverend Sharpton's in all these years. I've been there 25 years. So this is God's work. So as Gilchrist, worker for Christ, the meaning of my name, I'm just doing my job. And we'll continue on with playing item 4. Would you? We have one more item with Central Park 5. And I think that needs to be talked about. Because I saw Corey going in to see Loudmouth yesterday.
Corey
Wise.
It's crazy how, you know, you see during the time Donald Trump was trying to bring these kids into being prosecuted, saying lock them up. And now Corey Wise and all of them are now seeing that table turned. What people saying, lock Trump up.
That's it.
And so how the tables have turned.
That's it.
He said he would pull the switch to have them executed.
That's right.
And so he said all of that.
And you just found out what my role is about. You have that one? Is it 3 or 4? No, 3 we paid. 4. Item 4?
I know one of the detectives that worked on that case. Man. He still swears they did it.
It's the next one. The two sons. That's Amadou again.
Amadou.
Oh.
Don't play that one.
Did I talk too long?
You know,
No,
Reverend
that's
Dr.
Amadou going back again.
Johnny Ray Youngblood used to say, a lie can run 1,000 miles, but when truth puts on its boots to pursue the lie will inevitably commit suicide. And they always try and change Black Lives Matter. They're going to tell you what it means. All right?
You got to watch Fox News every now and then.
Yeah, you take a knee, they're going to tell you what it means when it was declared what it meant in the beginning. So it's important. You can't allow somebody else to speak your truth for you, right? Or to define you or anything you're doing. And Black Lives Matter, it was like a runaway train because the press kept saying, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that, that. It wasn't true.
All black movements are attacked, from the Panthers to you know, currently Black Lives Matter. And
You better believe that I hate the people that took this girl and raped her brutally. You better believe it.
The vicious rape and beating of a 30-year-old investment banker, Tricia Miley, who was jogging in Central Park last night. 5 youths are in custody and are being questioned. The youngest is only 13.
Trump put his money where his mouth is by taking out this full-page ad in 4 New York City newspapers. Bring back the death penalty.
When I first saw this ad that Donald Trump made, I knew that this famous person calling for us to die was very serious.
5 teens between the ages of 15 and 17 were charged with numerous rape, sodomy, and assault counts.
In 1989, myself and 4 other individuals were arrested and falsely accused of raping the Central Park jogger in a case that became widely known as the Central Park jogger case. We became known as the Central Park 5. In 2002, we were found to be innocent after the real perpetrator came forward, and that was confirmed by DNA evidence.
All of the defendants gave videotaped statements to police implicating themselves or others, but some of their attorneys charged today that police obtained the confessions by force.
People wanted to see how the justice system would work, and so they were looking at this case as a litmus test to see whether the justice system would actually be just or not. And it became very clear that there was this huge black and white kind of thing. These black and brown individuals had raped a white woman in Central Park. That was the worst thing that anyone could have ever done.
What are you afraid of for our city?
This racism, I'm hoping doesn't break out into another racism thing like back in the 60s.
There are other worse things that are happening in the city. And when it happened to a black, they never do the media's never here.
You know, back in 1989, you know, there was a huge divide when you think about the haves and the have-nots, the tale of two cities of sorts.
Most people know why this man is too famous.
In May of 1989, Donald Trump read an ad that ran in all of the major newspapers. In this ad, he basically was saying, bring back the death penalty. Bring back our police. Common citizens were not given the opportunity to make their own judgments. Common citizens were being manipulated and swayed into believing that we were guilty. The simple premise was that if your name was in the paper, if you look like a criminal because of the color of your skin, well, you have to be guilty. So Donald Trump, he was the fire starter, I would say. Because when you think about going to jail for a crime that you didn't commit, 1 day in jail is too long. When we won the lawsuit, his stance was that we pulled off the biggest heist in New York City's history. But to see that he has not changed his position of being a hateful person, to see that he has not changed his position of inciting people, to see that he's still the same person, and in many ways he's perfected his sense of being that #1 inciter. What would this country look like with Donald Trump as being the president? That's a scary thing. That is a very scary thing. What would the world do in response to that? Man, I can't even imagine.
You used to have some.
Scary, huh? And we had a horror show for this long. And here we come today and the horror still goes on. When are we going to get justice about this? It's funny that we both look at this, and seeing Corey Weiss last night go to see Loudmouth, and here he's shouting lock Trump up, who should be in jail. The greatest crime he's committed is stealing secret documents from the government. This is treason.
He's colluded with Russia.
I mean,
He's causing insurrection.
If Russia hadn't been involved with the 2016 election, he wouldn't have got elected. Or if the district attorney had told that there was not only a case against Hillary, there was a case against Trump. Right. These things were hidden from us. And
I don't know if it would have mattered if it weren't.
Yes, it would have mattered a whole lot.
So he got impeached by Republicans?
No, I'm talking about 2016.
Oh, I'm talking about all of the racists that voted for. Let's not forget that Joe Biden, who won the election fair and square.
I'm talking about before this.
Yes.
I'm talking about the beginnings in 2016, how he was elected president the first time. We knowing all these things about Trump, New Yorkers and the world not knowing about the type of person Trump was.
So after 4 years, everyone was privy to who Trump is.
Yeah.
After 4 years. And let's not be mistaken that Joe Biden won the election, as I was saying before, and he got the most amount of votes ever in American history. But right after that is Donald Trump. Donald Trump has the second most amount of votes in American history. Right. 4 years with this guy, he has a lot of people on his side. Not only on his side, he continues to feed them the information that he wants to feed them, and he still has the Republican Party in his palm. So
74 million people voted for him in 2020.
Yeah.
That shows you where this country is.
Even though after 4 years, let's say if you want to say they didn't know him before, everyone knows what he's about, what his message is about.
So we know what America, you used to be able to shame people into being, if they were racist, you'd be able to make them feel shame.
Well, the KKK used to wear sheets. Now they're running out without masks.
Well, they always were like that. Right. But I'm saying back in the day.
No, now they're burning down your house and running in supermarkets.
You could say, I'm following the Constitution. You know, you could preach the Constitution to most racists. There was a day.
But they're not listening. They're not listening. Look at the Supreme Court now. Look at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is a joke.
It's a setup.
And we need to understand the foundation upon which this country was built. It wasn't built on Christianity. Those men were theists. They weren't Christians. It was built, it was the haves and the have-nots. White men could not vote when they organized this organization. White men without owning land could not vote.
Right.
So it was an elect group of people that they called their country.
Royalty.
All right? And when you look at the Pledge of Allegiance, it says, and to the republic, you know, you're not a shareholder, I'm not a shareholder. We all live here. And what is sad is that white people don't understand how they're being played in the mix by all these rich individuals.
They're
As Trump said,
kings,
I don't pay taxes.
They're kings and queens in all countries.
So
That's the way things
Trump
are run.
exposed what this country is. He doesn't pay taxes, but we're all taxed, right? With all the money. Matter of fact, he gets paid by the government, right?
Right.
But I think it's, if we go back to the movie Loudmouth, and you go back to Bensonhurst and Howard Beach, Trump grew up in these areas,
That's
not
right.
right?
He grew up in
Queens.
Brownsville.
Right.
He grew up in Brownsville, Brooklyn.
So Sharpton grew up in Brownsville, Brooklyn.
Oh, I'm sorry. Not you said Trump. I'm sorry.
But
yeah.
Trump grew up in
I'm sorry.
Queens, not too far from Brownsville.
And so mention his father was a Klansman.
Yes.
So his father was there's a
In
lot
Queens.
of history there. But my point is that what everything he is Queens, New York, right? And you talk about that schism. And then we get to the situation where the Central Park Five, he takes out this ad because he can. Who can do that?
Right.
And then he gets all this publicity because he's really good at getting publicity. And for years, the American society's eating this up, and they agree with what he's saying was doing
Because they believed it.
I just think that they always feel like if it's right or wrong, it's okay. They're black. They can go to jail.
Right. There
Black
you go.
lives don't matter.
No, people actually believe what he said.
Well, people also feel that black people and believe are inferior. They believe
Well,
that
they
we
were
were
in the
3/5 of a
park
person at
doing-
one point.
They were in the park cutting up. So it's normal for a normal white person to think that naturally. I mean,
You know,
it's natural.
The way that some white people think is really crazy.
Yeah.
I
Why
took
would
the
they be
train up here.
accused if they weren't guilty?
Right. I took the train up here.
So the woman did get raped. I mean, you know,
She did.
she did.
She
There was a crime.
Which happened that Mateus Reyes confessed to it.
Right.
Yes.
After meeting Corey Weiss.
Right.
Who was in there,
prison.
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
after the rest of them had gotten out. He met Corey Weiss, and they had a beef once before about a TV.
Right. And Rikers Island years
And
before.
he saw that the guy had no business in his heart against him, Mateus Reyes, so he finally confessed. And they checked his DNA and it matched. What was so criminal about the Central Park Five is that they didn't have any DNA evidence.
And they violated their rights in interviewing a 15-year-old
Without the
child
parent present.
without the parent present.
Yeah.
And
And
had them
that
sign.
woman, Linda Fairstein, has made millions of dollars off of this case, and she should be run out of town on a rail. But you know, as black people, you can go back to the Scottsboro boys. You can talk about Emmett Till. I was arresting a guy on the Lexington Avenue
You can
line
talk
years
about
ago.
slavery.
He
I
ripped
mean,
off a woman, and the woman didn't believe that I was a police officer. I have the guy in cuffs. I'm home. She says, "You're not a police officer." Oh, what's a cop? A white man in the Norman Rockwell picture with the little boy at the soda shop? I said,
It's the brainwash
it's crazy.
and the white supremacy.
And I know white people that still believe that Trump, and I'm talking to people across the country. I said, listen, you don't know this man. We know him from New York. And they're like, what? Well, I say, I know you never heard this, but these are the things that he has been doing over the years, but the level of ignorance, and I'm not saying stupidity, ignorance due to the lack of information.
But it's not about the ignorance. It's not
And
about
it
any
goes-
of that. It's about his agenda that he's pushing, which is the
ignorance of racism is something of such a degree it has never gone away and it's not going away in this country. And we need to be cognizant. I don't care if you have a black president. I don't care if you have a second black president. I don't care if the black president's vice president becomes president. Racism is going to be here.
So yeah,
and we have to fight against it on a consistent basis.
It has to be put in the Constitution, right? Specifically, that because there has been such a systematic effort to put us in chains, no matter what generation we're in.
Yeah.
So first thing we have to do, because everybody's talking about reparations, is we have to elect people that are going to vote on that. And we have the most black power that we've ever had in the history of this country, with all the people throughout the country. And if we can't get it together now, I don't know where we're going to go from here.
Well,
but the stride is not necessarily, they will put a clown in the White House, which they already did. If they're going to get their policies pushed, they already stacked the Supreme Court.
Right.
And all of that doesn't have to, and they don't, of course, Donald Trump, they don't like the imagery that he puts out in the rhetoric, but they are okay with it because they want to create even more a United States of an apartheid.
Yeah.
Well, it's white fear. They're afraid that, you
The
know,
Indians are going to come back and do to them what they did to them, and then the
Exactly.
black folk are going to come back and enslave them.
So they have a right
Yes.
to be afraid, especially if they're wrong.
You know.
If they're racist and actually think that they're superior to other people, then you know, everything turns around. God will come in first.
You know, whites never believed or called themselves whites just because. It was because they were all in Europe, and the elites, white elites, got together and said, "We are outnumbered. How are we going to win this battle worldwide?"
Yeah.
And they created this white supremacist system that, again, as you said,
Yeah.
not only fools or plays on black and brown people, but also fools poor whites.
And and Germany, Hitler did it to other white people.
And every time there's a leader that pulls everybody together, they seem to knock them off. So if you have an appeal to the masses, you're on their radar. And so the question is, how do we,
Yeah, it comes from us. If we realize that we're the spiritual people of the planet, which I preach all the time, we have to understand where our strength comes from.
I'm gonna dig it a little bit deeper. In the Bible, the children of Israel had to march from slavery all the way to the promised land, but once they got there, they were divided. There were 12 tribes and they weren't together.
Right.
God, there were many judges that came, but it wasn't until they got a king that united the 12 tribes that they were able to really make their stake in the promised land. What you gonna say?
I have a minute left.
Oh, so
and with that,
we're going to go back to the book of Exodus.
I promise you, we're going to get to the promised land.
No
and
justice.
The God in me
loves the God in you.
Oh. And stay tuned for more information from the Gilchrist experience. And I thank my brothers for hanging in there.
Happy New Year.
We're almost
Merry
there.
Christmas.
We're almost there.
Happy Kwanzaa.
We're almost there.
And God is real.
Yes, He is.
Pay attention.